The Stonecrest Podcast.
Spreading awareness within our community.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Stonecrest Podcast. And we are during the runoff election season. So we had to bring back some of the folks who are running off. So we have someone really special today that we want to go ahead and make sure we get back in front of you so that you can learn more about her and make sure that you don't vote blind. So today we introduce to some, reintroduce to others, attorney Yolanda Mack. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be back. I'm excited.
I'm happy you're back. And you know what? You had pearls on last time, and you have pearls today. They're not the same exact. I think you had a pearl necklace, and now you have pearl earrings. I need to buy some pearls so I can get in the girls' club. You might invite me out with the lawyers. You know, I could be the I don't want to call myself the court jester or anything like that, but I could be the resident comedian so I can hang out with the cool kids.
Yes, it's easy to throw in some pearls.
Okay,
it's easy.
I'm going to work on it. I'm going to get it together, guys. You know, curls. I was going to say curls for the girls. That is a terrible reference. Has nothing to do with anything that we have going on here, but obviously my brain is on dating. I'm a very married woman. All right. So today we want to make sure that we give you the opportunity to share and talk about your platform again, because you ran a very, very strong campaign. So congratulations first.
Thank you.
Getting out in front. I think compared to many of the candidates, I saw you showing up pretty much the most. So can you talk to us a little bit about you and about what you've learned so far in your campaign experience?
Okay. Well, I'm so glad to be back. I'm super excited. I can tell you I'm from DeKalb, for DeKalb, which is one of my slogans. I grew up right here in DeKalb County, attended Avondale Elementary School, a graduate of Avondale High School, the first DeKalb Center of the Performing Arts, but I won't sing for you today. I won't do that.
Oh, please.
Oh, no.
I think that'll get more votes. We'll vote if you sing. That's going to be my slogan.
I don't think so. But I grew up right here in DeKalb. I grew up off Wesley Chapel, off Thompson Mill Road. And after high school, I attended 2 HBCUs. I did my undergrad degree at Alcorn State University, and then my law degree at Texas Southern Thurgood Marshall School of Law. And then I returned back here to the Metro Atlanta area as I started my career in public service. I started my career as a public defender, and now I'm currently the deputy of the sexual assault unit in the Fulton DA's office under DA Fonnie T. Willis. And I was recruited by her from the DeKalb DA's office, where I was the deputy of domestic violence and sexual assault.
She gets awards, you guys. And I'm just going to say this, and this is selfish. Go listen to the previous episode, and you could learn so much about the great work that Attorney Mack is doing around the Special Victims Unit. I love saying that. I just feel like, I'm Olivia from Law and Order, but definitely all of her good works, because I want us to focus a lot on what she's bringing to the table and why you should vote for her. But if you want to learn more about what she's done already, she talks, the breadth of knowledge. I felt so inspired. Right, by what you've done. It was difficult to hear some of the things that you dealt with, and then some of your decisions. It also opened my eyes to why many Black women might choose to sit in the prosecution seat, which is a place that you have been as well. And I think that probably is important for us to address again.
So as I stated, I started my career as a public defender, and I'm currently a prosecutor. I prosecute adult sexual assault crimes. And before that, I was doing adult sexual assault crimes and domestic violence. And so a lot of times people, think, well, why a prosecutor? I tell people all the time, there is a place for all of those positions in the criminal justice system. Not only do you want a public defender, someone who cares about people and people who are charged with crimes, but you want a prosecutor, someone on the other side that you think will understand, who would be fair in making decisions. As the prosecutor, you have a lot of the control, if not all of it. A prosecutor decides what recommendations to make, what to consider as far as sentencing, what type of cases to charge, if you decide to charge the case, or what type of charges. So I think, although a lot of times people think, oh, prosecutor negative, you have to remember, as the prosecutor, you also want someone who knows how to be fair, who's been a public defender. So I've been on the other side. And so I always see things from more than one side. And so the role of the prosecutor is just as important as the role of the public defender.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And I want to insert one comment here, and I feel like it's somewhat validating what you said. I also met a young lady. We have another show that I do production for, and we had a guest. She's currently an attorney, but she was also a prosecutor upstate in New York and in Connecticut. And she talked about being a Black woman as a prosecutor. Also, it helped with like just the knowledge of culture and community. Some things that other cultures who have not grown up in our communities, they might, disregard or hold against you and not understand how to navigate that. And she felt that as a prosecutor, she was able to make clearer decisions based on that, or advocate differently because other cultures did not understand who we were. So I felt like that it's still kind of like saying somewhat of the same things of like why a woman of color or a man of color would choose to be on the prosecuting side. Because also, last thing, I think the easiest one to say, yes, I'll prosecute is sex offenders, right? All the other, I don't think there's going to be any mom saying, why would you want to send those people to jail? I think we all agree that they should go to jail. But so I know before, I love taking people on tangents. I talked to you a little bit, or I asked, what are some of the things you've learned on your campaign trail so far because of the campaign being so strong? And then we had a great conversation and pivot. But I would love to come back to that if you could tell me a little bit about what you've learned so far and what you want to make sure that the constituents understand about voting for you for judge.
Okay. So what I've learned so far, I've learned so much. I don't even think you have time for that. But I will tell you, I've learned that, DeKalb, as far as me being from DeKalb, I think that's important to people from DeKalb, someone who's from the community, who understands the community, and not just from the community, I'm involved in the community. So I'm a member of Junior League of DeKalb. I'm a member of NCNW. I'm the co-chair of the Black Pearls. And so for those who don't know, the Black Pearls is the girls mentee program for NCNW. So I mentor the girls. Sheriff Maddox has a summer camp. She has the girls on the boards. The girls are the girls to pearls. She works with them in the summer, and then I get those girls for the rest of the year and mentor them throughout the year.
Am I too old to be a girl?
Maybe just a little bit.
Dang.
Maybe
if I put some pigtails in, maybe. Okay.
So I think all of that has been good. I'm a member of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, the Decatur DeKalb chapter. And so being involved in the community, I think the citizens of DeKalb have recognized that this is not just someone who's from here, but this is someone who is involved in our community, who understands and is a part of it. I've also learned that, my experience, one of the things that I ran on was my experience. I have almost 30 years of trial experience. I've handled thousands of cases. I've tried hundreds of cases. And I think that set me apart from all of the other candidates.
I'm distracted. Distracted to the maximum. Black does not crack. How have you been in the career for 30 years?
Oh, my goodness. Yes.
You must have graduated from Thurgood Marshall School of Law like you were 12. You're about 12.
Maybe 12, maybe 14.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Yeah. So I have been in front of judges my entire career. I am a trial attorney. I've tried hundreds of cases, and I am the only candidate that is currently already in a supervisory role. And so I think that resonated, with the citizens of DeKalb, because once you become a judge, obviously you're in a leadership position, you have a staff. I currently supervise. The last 8 years of my career, I've been in a supervisory role. So I supervise a team of maybe about 20 people, lawyers, investigators, victim advocates, paralegals in the Fulton DA's office, and I did the same here in DeKalb.
So she's a boss, to put it simply. And thank you. And then you have on pearls and you do the mentee for the girls. Pearls. So I really need pearls so I can get mentored. Because like I said, I'm trying to get to the upper echelon of ladies. I'm not as refined. I can be refined, but it just doesn't come out all the time that way.
Really, you are. You're refined. I think we're tougher on ourselves.
And she's kind, right? Look at the humility here, guys. So the next thing you talked about being in the supervisory role, and I feel like that is definitely something that we should emphasize. But is there anything else about yourself that you feel you want to draw a strong parallel between you and your counterparts on why you are the stronger choice for the role?
Yes. And I think another thing is, I think it's one thing to talk about being fair. It's one thing to have practiced on both sides and have been fair. You know, we can all say, oh, when I get on the bench, I'll be fair. But I have defended people, you know, who have been charged with crimes, who perhaps said, I'm not guilty, I didn't do it, you know? And so realizing sometimes how, I tell people all the time, I say, sometimes, you know, people can understand sentences, they can understand the penalties if they feel like they had a fair day in court, if they felt like they were heard. And sometimes the sentence, you know, the punishment is just what it is. And so I think being on both sides, having been a prosecutor, understanding victims, understanding how crimes affect the community, you know, from property crimes, because although I'm the deputy of the sexual assault unit, I have tried vehicular homicide cases. I've tried serious injury cases. I've tried drug cases. I received Attorney of the Year while I was doing what we call the high profile and homicides and vehicular homicide cases. So I've done a lot of different cases. So I understand how, you know, things affect people on both sides. And I think as a judge, it's important that when you're a judge, to really understand, you know, what both parties are trying to convey.
I love that, because I think, to your point, having a singular vision or experience can limit your sight on what fair looks like. You know, because so would you come off the bench and defend me if I accidentally shot out somebody's tire with road rage?
No, I don't think they would allow me to do that.
Okay. Well, I have to find another attorney.
Yes.
To help.
There are plenty of lawyers. You better find one here in the Atlanta area for sure.
To help get me off, though, because I have confidence that you could get me off. I don't know if they could, if, shooting off tires, it seems like I would get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
I'm not going to really do it, guys. I love my neighbors.
Don't do it.
I just only get mad when you guys drive bad, but I won't hurt you. Maybe. All right. So circling back, because I said that we've seen a lot of you on social media. We've seen you've had a very strong campaign and you received a ton of endorsements, which is fabulous. Congratulations. But what do you feel that the community is saying? Why do you feel that you had such a strong campaign? Why do you think that the majority of the folks showed up and voted for you this time?
I think that my message, resonated with DeKalb. I was the most endorsed candidate. And I was very proud of that because I'm not an elected official. So, I could really appreciate, speaking to people, telling them about my history, about my vision for DeKalb, about the work that I've done, the work that I do in the community, and that those leaders will lend their names to me. And I think that what that has shown is that the citizens of DeKalb have said Yolanda Mack is the judge that we would like to see on the bench. She cares about the community. She has the experience. She has the judicial temperament. And so I think the endorsements, along with receiving 47% of the votes, in DeKalb County, was a message to me and to others that DeKalb County wants to see Yolanda Mack on the bench.
Yeah, that was really close to 50%.
It was really close.
So close, but then we got to sing Brandy's song, but we won't because we said we're not singing today. But nonetheless, that, like I said, it was very clear that you received the majority of the votes, and it's very clear that those folks, so we want them to come back out because,
absolutely,
in our communities, it's just those runoffs, people do not show up the same way as they do when they're coming out to vote, and definitely not the same way they do when it's for a November election. Right. So can you talk to us a little bit about why we should get up and get out and vote during early voting, as well as making sure we show up on June 18th and check the box next to Yolanda Mack's name?
Yes. So, it is important. Like, sometimes people forget that the election is still going on. I had people to call me and they were like, "You won, right? You received 47% of the vote." I'm like, "No, I have to receive 51." So it's important to go back out and vote. So remember, early voting ends on Friday. And the last day to vote is next Tuesday, the 28th. Now, the good thing about early voting is that you can vote anywhere in the county. So that's the really good thing about that. You can go to decapvotes.com and find out all the places where you can vote. However, if you cannot vote by Friday, when you vote next Tuesday, you will have to vote at your voting precinct.
Awesome. And I'm going to try my best to make sure I get out there and vote immediately, because I don't want to have to drive. My precinct is much farther than another location that's just like right next door. So that's a great call out. Thank you so much for that. Now, if we want to talk a little bit more, I think last time we really spent a lot of time talking about the domestic violence piece and trying to educate many people, because it was during the holiday season and there's an uptick during that time. So we really appreciate you sharing your knowledge. But I would love for us to spend a little bit of time talking about your campaign pillars, the issues that matter the most to you, and how you plan on improving the community through the judicial system.
So a couple of things. The first thing that I want to do, the DeKalb State Court has several accountability courts. And those are courts like Veterans Court, DUI Court, and it's to give someone an opportunity to do some type of program, work through the issues that they may have, and to prevent them from perhaps having a conviction on their record. And so one of the things that I want to start is a domestic violence and sexual assault accountability court. A lot of times when you're in state court, you have what we consider to be your lower level offenders. When I say lower level, it means misdemeanors, maybe a first time offense, no weapons are involved. And I have found, just doing this type of work, a lot of times there are underlying issues. Sometimes there's drug abuse, sometimes there's alcohol, sometimes there are mental health issues. And even talking with victims, a lot of times people want their families to stay together, but there are these issues going on, and they're like, we don't know how to deal with those, because when he or she, because sometimes the defendant can be a she, when they're not on their medication, sometimes this is when these things happen. So I definitely feel like a domestic violence, sexual assault accountability court in state court would be very helpful in the DeKalb State Court. So within my first year, I want to do that. Second would be the backlog. We know from COVID that most of the courts have a backlog. And then in DeKalb, maybe about a year ago, there was a flood. And so, they were not in the courthouse for some months from that. And so from speaking to the other judges there, I know that there'll be a backlog. And so one of my main goals is to really try to work on the backlog, cases pending, civil and criminal. Just is never helpful, criminal cases, people have cases over their heads, maybe can't get jobs, know. Sometimes people have to continue to take off work, victims and defendants, to continue to come to court on cases, in the civil, world, as cases get older, as they're sitting, they're losing money, they have experts. So my goal is to really come in and try to tackle the backlog.
Those are things that I didn't even think about as real concerns, right? So thank you for bringing that to the forefront as opportunity areas, because as a resident of DeKalb, I'm just thinking like, hey, it's the people who come through for the traffic tickets. So what type of cases will you preside over if you're elected to this role?
Okay, so the state court handles criminal and civil cases. Now, with the criminal cases, they are what we call your misdemeanor cases, which is the maximum you can get on one misdemeanor, because obviously you can have several, is 12 months in custody. You can get, obviously, like minimum, you could get 1 day or even probation. So you will have like your domestic violence cases, your family violence battery, like where there's no weapons involved, your simple battery cases, any type of pushing, shoving, terroristic threats, some of your misdemeanor sexual assault cases. On the civil side, you will have your breach of contract, your any type of work disputes. Your personal injury or car accidents. Your medical malpractice. Medical malpractice cases are if you're suing the hospital because you feel like they were negligent in some way.
Is there a dollar value associated with that as well? Like for the medical malpractice,
No.
like, oh, okay. So
It can be
okay. You're
from
like
a very small amount to a very, very large amount.
I was curious. I was like, I wonder, does it move if it's like, oh, if it's over 3 million, then it goes to a different court, but it does not matter.
No, it will be in state court.
In state court, regardless. I have, not that I want to be suing for anything, but I just out of curiosity, it's like, okay,
Yes.
no, I don't have anything pending. Doggone it.
No, right. Well, that could be a good thing.
No, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
It's a great thing that to not have any reason to
Right.
sue someone or to have anyone suing me. That's a fantastic
Absolutely.
thing. I'm hoping to keep my life in that particular lane.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Most people do. But, I tell people all the time, state court, the one reason it's good to have a judge that has a lot of experience and who
Mhm.
has been in front of judges their entire career, because almost anyone can kind of find themselves in state court. Superior court, you're dealing with the higher level offenders. It may
Mhm.
take a little work to get there, right?
Right.
But state court, you can get in a yelling match with someone. You can
Mhm.
almost hit someone. You can, hit someone, punch someone, and you can find yourself in state court, a DUI.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk like
know?
those are two things. So you
Mhm.
said simple battery, and I'm thinking to myself, if someone hits me, that's not simple. But I know you said it's pushing and shoving and all that, but
Yes.
like they only get 12 months if they shove me. What if they spit on me? Is that
Well,
only 12
you can
months?
charge. Well, the thing is, you can charge several different charges for the different actions.
Oh,
So let's say I pushed you. That could be a charge. If I threaten you, that's a charge. So you can get 12 months on each.
and can we make sure that it's consecutive and not concurrent?
It's up to the judge to make a determination.
So, Yolanda, if it's me,
If it's you want
I wa-
consecutive time. And some people do. You come to court. I tell people all victims are different.
Mhm.
Some people are like, well, I kind of understand this and that, and
Mhm.
I wouldn't want them to get more than this. And you have
Mhm.
some people who are like, life. You're like, ma'am, that's not appropriate. But, they're like, this is how I feel. I want the max. I want consecutive.
Yeah.
And that's why, obviously with the judge has to hear both sides and then think about what is reasonable
Mhm.
in light of the facts and circumstances.
I'm going to write a wild letter. If I'm ever in that position, the letter is going to be something so crazy. It's going to be like, okay, listen, every night before I close my eyes, I see that person's teeth when they were yelling at me and they were, I thought I was getting attacked by a coyote and it was just a person yelling at me, and now I'm scared. I'm scared of all coyotes now, and I'm also scared of all people that look like this, and they should go to jail forever.
But you would be surprised that different things really affect people different ways.
They
And I know you're
do.
joking, but some people, you think if their house gets broken into, some people
Mhm.
are not as affected. They may say, well, we got an alarm system and,
Mhm.
we do some other things. And then some people like, I don't sleep well.
Right.
It really, I felt like it, even when they're not at home at the time, they're
Mhm.
like, well, just knowing someone was in my home, I
It's a
don't
lot.
feel, safe, and I check on my kids more often. And so I tell people, a lot of times when we think about court, we only think about the person that's charged. A lot of times there's a victim too.
Absolutely.
And how that crime, although to someone on the outside, they may say, oh, nobody got hurt and they just got their car stolen. And then you find out from the person, yeah, I got my car stolen and I lost my job because I
Mhm.
couldn't get there. And so
Yeah.
there are people,
And it's
around these cases.
It's a domino effect
Right.
around all that. And I can understand not feeling safe. I'm just going to make it clear. If someone breaks in here, I'm making guys give me all new floors. We're going to have to paint everything. I need new furniture because I don't know what they sat on and they have germs. And I need a bodyguard. That's
It
all
does. It
crazy.
affects people.
Because now I'm not safe here. Like now I could go to bed with the window open. Would I ever be able to do that
Yeah.
again? Because I'm now afraid that someone has access to my home with my children and I'm not going to feel the same anymore. So lock them up and throw away the key. I know you have to be reasonable, and I know
do.
that I have no influence here, but lock them up.
Lock them up. I have made a note.
If you ever see Forte come across, just put your hand on your head because you're like, she's about to be wild.
Right,
And
but like, here we go.
right, exactly.
Tell us, ma'am,
Right.
how this has affected
Oh, do you
you.
really want to know? Right. I'm not sure if you remember a few years ago there, I'm not even sure. It was a southern state. I can't remember if it was Alabama, Tennessee or something, but there was a young man who was on the news. He went viral and they made a whole song about it as well. And someone broke into his home and I think they tried to sexually assault his sister. And he was like, you need to hide your husbands, hide your wife, because they raping everybody out here.
I remember that.
And so
I remember that.
I'm that guy.
You're that guy.
Listen, it's bad. And I'm going to play that song. Like, this is my pain. Listen to this. The auto tune and everything lets you know how serious I am about locking them up.
Okay.
We're going to name this episode Lock Them Up. Just kidding. That'll be bad for you.
No, don't name it that. But you do. You have to consider all sides. It's important. There's someone that's charged and then there's a victim. And then, to having to weigh those, the victim and the effects that it has on him or her and the person that's charged,
Actually, I was listening to someone else and they were talking about domestic violence actually. And someone brought up the men and their psyche. And the host was like, oh, we're not going to talk about the men because, they're the ones doing this and we have to fight our own battle. They need to deal with it on their own. What is something that we probably would want to take into consideration when thinking about an offender? Like, to be fair, what is something that we would want to think about if I'm the victim and someone has, we'll just keep using the same scenario, broken into my home, like what would be a consideration for me to think that I should show mercy?
You have to remember the person that's charged, they have lived in this world, perhaps have had some disadvantages, maybe didn't have loving parents, maybe was kind of raised in the streets. Maybe didn't have anyone to care for them and to help them to make good decisions. Maybe been the victim of some type of crimes themselves. Sometimes a lot of times in domestic violence cases, people who victimized were also victims, or grew up in a household where they witnessed those type of things. Absolutely. Not always, but sometimes it is. Sometimes age plays a part, right? If you have a young person, people sometimes say, well, they should have been in school and they're young and I don't want to see them with this on their record forever. People consider the age. Sometimes there's substance abuse problems. And sometimes, the defendant's in court and they're like, I have this drug problem. I've tried to get help. I can't, I can't shake it. And so there are, a lot of factors that are to be considered, whether this person was really being malicious or, if this person can be saved, right? If it's like, oh, bad decision. Sometimes it is a bad decision, but what's the appropriate remedy for it? Absolutely. Is it some way we can help, not just putting a person in custody? Is there a program? Is there some way we can kind of try to maybe get this person on track, And so I think people consider all those things.
That makes sense. And so the opposite of consecutive is concurrent, right?
Correct.
So those folks, if they have a substance abuse and their mom was mean, maybe I'm okay with concurrent.
Yeah, sometimes people say,
Maybe.
And it's interesting because sometimes, a lot of times victims, they don't know anything about the person, that either broke in their house or stole their car. Right. And then after they learn, they say, oh, wow, I didn't know he was just 16. Where are his parents? Oh, well, he doesn't have his parents. He's been, and those are fair things. Now, sometimes, victims say, well,
they should have still known better. Where's your heart? What's your heart posture?
Correct.
Right. Correct. Because no matter what, there's just some things that you just would never do. Right. I still stop for squirrels and I'm not going to be mad at my husband today and be like, squirrel, I'm going to get you, so I think there's something to that as well. But I am leaning towards concurrent.
Yeah, some people are raised on survival and not on love. And I think sometimes when people hear some of the things, and not always, they think, well, I didn't realize that. And then, and not that they don't want any punishment, right? I mean, because that's where your judges come in. People aren't saying, and therefore there should be no punishment. It's like, well, what can we do? What is the appropriate punishment? Can this person be saved? Do you have anything? And that's where those accountability courts come in. Hey, this person doesn't have a long record, made a bad decision, maybe is taking accountability for that. That goes a long way. Sometimes people apologize. They were like, I shouldn't have done it, but then we figure out, okay, now what needs to happen to see if we can, salvage this situation, make the best of it, a bad situation for both people.
If they say sorry, I guess I definitely lean towards concurrent.
Sorry goes a long way.
It does.
I don't think people realize that. When
Right,
I'm in
like,
court a lot of times,
Yeah, you feel
the
bad.
apology, because
Yeah.
those are things people never thought they would get.
Like, because someone doesn't feel or act remorseful because they feel like it's that sense of entitlement, right? Like, you can go and make more, and I've had all these disadvantages. Like when those same things that you listed, when someone tries to levy those as excuses versus opportunities to say like, hey, I recognize I'm in this space and I've made this bad decision and now I want the chance to be better. They're like, well, your mom and daddy were there. My dad left. You're like, no, that's not fair, because I still had the choice to be crazy.
Apologies go a long way.
That's why I'm not a lawyer or a judge.
Right. I've been in court where both sides are crying.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The person charged just really feeling horrible, about what they did, and the family or the victims on the other side just being grateful at least for that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
sometimes they're like, I didn't think the person even cared. I just and then when they hear that and see on both sides, you're dealing with people.
That's the main thing.
Yeah.
See, this is why you deserve to be running. And this is why I am just on the mic talking random and not out here in charge of people's sentencing. Because obviously at the very beginning, everybody was going to jail consecutively. And no matter what. Oh, they stubbed their toe in the club. Jail. Forever. My favorite part of the whole show right now is that you're like, yeah, a victim will come in and they'll be like, yeah, life. And you're like, that's not appropriate.
That's not really appropriate. But I understand where they're coming from and what they're feeling and what they've been through.
Okay. Why wouldn't we want to, like, if it's domestic violence and they didn't have a weapon, I'm just really, really curious as to why that would only be 1 year of time just because they didn't have a weapon. Because if I am like tearing somebody up with my fist, because
it depends on the extent of the injuries. But let's say there's domestic violence. Domestic violence basically means, you share a home or you share children together. And let's say there's a slap.
Like the Will Smith and Chris Tucker slap?
Well, I don't know about that. That would be, one count of...
So Will only going to jail for a year for that slap?
Up to a year.
Up to a year.
Up to a year.
Oh, I might be slapping somebody.
But a year, that's a long time to be away from your family.
I love my daughter.
To be away from your daughter, to be away from your home. And I tell people that all the time. I mean, I would not even want to be in jail for a day, right?
No.
I mean, so that can be a long time for someone who's never gone to jail before.
And I can't fight. So the moment somebody stood up and they're just a half of a fourth of an inch taller than me, I'm going to be like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so it's not to be taken lightly, even though people say like 12 months. A lot of times when you're dealing with that, you're dealing with someone who's never gone to jail before.
I would cry. I would cry. Sentence me to 30 minutes. I'm done.
Right.
Put me in cuffs. I'm over.
Right. And then what does their life, even if you sent someone, and that's why I say as a judge, you have to really think about, even if someone went to jail, let's say 30 days. Whether it's warranted, if the judge decides, no, this is an appropriate sentence, 30 days, people can lose their whole lives in 30 days.
Absolutely. We're living check to check, right?
Correct.
So that means we did not get paid for that 30 days.
Right.
And I don't know where in the United States someone has 30 days worth of vacation.
Right. So you may lose your job. Everyone doesn't have a job where they can just go back to it. So, I mean, it is, although the sentences aren't really high, it's important that the judge knows, like, a week can change someone's life.
Absolutely.
If they don't have anyone to watch their kids, where are their kids going to be for 30 days?
I'm about to continue to be good. I'm sorry for even though it was a joke, I'm sorry for even referencing that I would shoot out somebody's tire. I don't own any weapons to do these things anyway, so I'm really talking out the side of my neck, guys. So I'm so sorry. Please don't send me to jail consecutively for talking crazy on the mic, because you said terroristic threats and someone might try to say that I threatened them, and I didn't. This is all for the mic to lighten up and make the show fun. Don't send me to jail. Okay. For even 30 minutes, because I would lose all the fights. So if I came in and I was in trouble, you'd be like, oh, get her out of here.
Get her out of here. It's too much.
It's
It's too
way too
much.
much. She already learned her lesson. She learned her lesson on the, what is it called? The perp walk.
Yes.
That
yes.
was enough.
Yes,
That was plenty.
enough.
When they told me to cough, I was done. You know? Let me stop. All right. So getting back to why we're really here.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing and allowing me to be silly.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
appreciate that as well. But if you could take a moment, because it's time for us to wrap up. I know you're tired of sitting here
Mhm.
in my house. I don't have no food or water or anything. So can you talk to the residents of DeKalb? Make your plea for why we should vote for Yolanda Mack, and remember to get back out there and vote for early voting, or at minimum show up on June 18th and make sure we get you to that 51% that you so
Absolutely.
deserve.
Thank you, DeKalb, for 47% of the vote. And remember, Friday is the last day to early vote. You can early vote anywhere in DeKalb County, and you can go on DeKalb Votes to figure out where you can vote. The last day to vote is next Tuesday, June 18th. If you wait till that day, you have to vote at your precinct. And remember, it's Mack for me in Division 3. Yolanda Mack for DeKalb County State Court Judge, Division 3.
Thank you guys for coming and enjoying all of my wonderful peppering of ignorance during this fantastic interview. We thank Attorney Mack. Remember to vote and don't vote blind. This election is incredibly important because not only are you voting for state court judge in the runoff, there are also the school board runoffs, and as well as our county CEO runoffs. So this is an incredibly important vote for everyone. Please get out there, vote for the candidate that makes the most sense and that we believe could impact the change that we need in DeKalb County. All right, neighbors, we'll see you next time. The Stonecrest Podcast.
Spreading awareness within our community.